The man had a reputation that walked 3 steps ahead of him wherever he went. Tech millionaire from Austin, Texas. Self-made, ruthless, and absolutely zero tolerance for what he called incompetence. Have you ever been in a room where one person's anger controlled everyone else's breathing? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The silence in Romano's restaurant lasted exactly 7 seconds. Long enough for a billionaire to realize he'd just met the one person who wasn't afraid of his money or his mouth. Nathan Riker stormed through that restaurant door like a hurricane in a $1,000 suit. The hostess practically jumped behind her podium. 2 waiters froze mid-step, coffee pots trembling in their hands. Even the kitchen went quiet. You know, the kind of quiet where everyone holds their breath and prays they won't be noticed. This wasn't Nathan's first visit to Romano's. Hell, it wasn't even his second. The man had a reputation that walked 3 steps ahead of him wherever he went. Tech millionaire from Austin, Texas. Self-made, ruthless, and absolutely zero tolerance for what he called incompetence, which, according to Nathan, was pretty much everyone who wasn't him. Where's my usual table? His voice cut through the dinner crowd like a blade. The crystal glasses on nearby tables actually rattled. I'm not kidding, they rattled. But here's where things get interesting. Because standing behind the bar, polishing wine glasses with the kind of calm that comes from dealing with difficult people every single day, was Dana Brooks. 33 years old, single mother, tired eyes that had seen too much but still held their ground. She looked up from that wine glass, met his stare, and said the 5 words that would change both their lives forever. Your steak was perfectly fine, sir. The room went dead silent. Not restaurant quiet, morgue quiet. Because Nathan Riker had just sent back his 3rd steak. Third, and Dana Brooks, who made $11 an hour plus tips, had just told him no. His face went red, then purple. You could literally see the veins in his forehead start to throb. Excuse me? Dana set down that wine glass with the kind of precision that spoke volumes. She wasn't rushing, wasn't backing down, just steady. I said your steak was perfectly fine. I watched Carlos prepare myself. Medium rare, no seasoning on top, sauce on the side. Exactly how you ordered it the last 2 times you were here. Have you ever been in a room where one person's anger controlled everyone else's breathing? When was the last time you saw someone stand up to a bully? Drop a comment below. The other diners were pretending to study their menus like they contained the secrets of the universe. Phones came out, not to call for help, but to record what everyone assumed would be the most spectacular public meltdown in Romano's history. Nathan took 3 steps toward the bar. His designer shoes clicked against the worn hardwood floors like a countdown timer. Do you have any idea who you're talking to? Yes, sir. Dana's voice never wavered. A customer who's having a bad day. But your bad day isn't going to ruin mine. That's when it happened. The thing that shocked everyone, including Nathan himself. He just stopped, mouth open, words caught somewhere between his throat and his pride. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, had ever looked at Nathan Riker like he was just another human being having a rough Tuesday. The staring contest lasted maybe 10 seconds. Felt like 10 hours. His gray eyes locked onto her brown ones. And something shifted in that space between anger and recognition. Something neither of them was ready for. Finally, Nathan pulled out his wallet. Threw a $100 bill on the bar. Keep the change, he muttered, then turned and walked out like his pants were on fire. As Nathan stormed out, leaving behind a $100 bill for a $30 meal, Dana felt something shift in the air, a tension that promised this wasn't over. He told himself he came back for better service, but the truth was written in how his pulse quickened when he saw her name tag. 24 hours later, Nathan Riker's black Tesla pulled into Romano's parking lot. Again, which was weird, because Nathan Riker didn't do again with restaurants that disappointed him. He definitely didn't do again with waitresses who embarrassed him in front of a room full of people with smartphones. But there he was, straightening his tie in the rearview mirror like he was about to give a board presentation instead of ordering lunch. Dana spotted him through the window before he made it to the door. Her stomach did this weird little flip. Not fear, exactly, but not excitement either. More like when you see storm clouds rolling in and you're not sure if you should run inside or stay and watch the lightning. The lunch crowd was thin. 3 tables occupied, soft jazz playing, the kind of peaceful Tuesday afternoon that makes you forget the world has any problems at all. Until the door chimed and Nathan walked in. But this Nathan was different. No storming, no dramatic entrance. He actually waited for the hostess to seat him. Said please when he asked for a corner booth. The staff kept glancing at each other like they were witnessing a miracle. Dana approached his table with a coffee pot and that same steady confidence from the night before. Good afternoon. Coffee, please. He looked up, and for the first time, she noticed his eyes weren't just gray. They had these little gold flecks that caught the light. And I owe you an apology. She poured the coffee without spilling a drop, which was honestly impressive considering her hands wanted to shake. For what? For acting like a complete ass yesterday. The honesty hit her like a surprise punch. She'd expected another confrontation, maybe some passive-aggressive nonsense about customer service. Not this. Not Nathan Riker looking almost vulnerable in his expensive suit. We all have bad days, she said, setting the coffee pot down. Yours just happened to be public. What do you think when someone who hurt you suddenly tries to be nice? Have you ever given someone a second chance they didn't deserve? Share your experience. He smiled then, not the shark smile she'd expected, but something smaller, more real. You remember how I like my coffee? Black, no sugar. You ordered it 4 times yesterday while you were sending back those steaks. Right. He had the decency to look embarrassed. About that. Forgotten. She pulled out her order pad. What can I get you today? And please tell me you're not in the mood for steak. That got a laugh out of him, an actual, honest-to-God laugh that transformed his entire face. Burger, medium well, fries, and maybe a side of forgiveness if you've got any left. Dana wrote down his order, hyper-aware of how he was watching her hands move across the paper. When she looked up, he was studying her face like he was trying to solve some complicated equation. What? Nothing. I don't think anyone's ever told me to have a better day and actually meant it. Something in his voice made her chest tight. For just a second, she saw past the expensive suit and the reputation. Saw loneliness wearing designer clothes and driving a Tesla. Everyone deserves a better day, she said quietly. Even difficult customers. When she brought his food 20 minutes later, he was staring out the window at the parking lot like it held all the answers to life's mysteries. The burger sat untouched for a good 5 minutes while he just watched her work. Not creepy watching. More like he was trying to figure out how she moved through the world with such purpose. Can I ask you something? He said when she came to refill his coffee. Depends on what it is. Why didn't you back down yesterday? Most people would have just brought me another steak. Dana considered the question, really considered it. Because the steak wasn't the problem. And bringing you 12 steaks wouldn't have fixed whatever was actually wrong. When she poured his coffee without being asked, remembering exactly how he liked it, something cracked in his chest, and for the first time in years, Nathan Riker felt vulnerable. She found the envelope tucked under her car's windshield wiper. Enough money to pay rent for 3 months, with a note that made her hands shake. For standing up to me. Dana discovered it at 11:47 p.m. in Romano's parking lot. The dinner shift had been brutal. 2 large parties, a kitchen backup, and a table of college kids who thought leaving a $5 tip on an $80 check was generous. Her feet hurt, her back ached, and all she wanted was to drive home to her 8-year-old son and collapse on the couch. Instead, she stood there in the yellow glow of the streetlight, staring at more cash than she'd seen in one place since her divorce. $2,700 bills, crisp and clean like they'd never seen the inside of a real person's wallet. The note was written in Nathan's handwriting. She recognized it from the credit card slips he'd signed. Simple block letters on expensive paper. For standing up to me. You reminded me what dignity looks like. And her first instinct was to tear it up. Her second was to march back inside and throw it at his head. Her third, the one that made her stomach churn, was to count again and think about Marcus's school clothes and the overdue electric bill and the car payment that was coming due next week. Dana Brooks had been broke before, but she'd never been charity case broke. There's a difference. One makes you resourceful. The other makes you desperate. And desperate people do things they swore they'd never do. She was still standing there, envelope trembling in her hands, when Nathan's Tesla pulled into the parking lot. Because of course it did. Of course he'd show up at the exact moment she was having a complete emotional breakdown over his guilt money. He got out slowly, hands visible, like he was approaching a wild animal. I know what you're thinking. Do you? Her voice came out sharper than she'd intended. Because I'm thinking about 12 different ways to tell you exactly where you can stick your money. I'm thinking you want to throw it at my head, but you're too practical to waste $2,700 on the satisfaction. He was right, which made her even angrier. This isn't Pretty Woman, Nathan. I'm not some broken thing you can fix with cash. I never said you were broken. Would you accept help from someone you barely trust? What's the difference between charity and respect? Tell me in the comments. She waved the envelope between them like evidence in a court case. Then what is this? Guilt money? Payment for not calling you out on social media? What exactly am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you want. He stepped closer, and she caught a hint of his cologne, something expensive that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Pay bills, save it, burn it. I don't care. It's yours. Why? The simple question seemed to catch him off guard. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up that perfect style for the first time since she'd known him. Because yesterday, when you told me my bad day wasn't going to ruin yours, you gave me something I haven't had in years. What? Perspective. Dana stared at him, trying to read the expression on his face. In the parking lot's broken light, with shadows cutting across his features, he looked less like the tyrant from yesterday and more like just a man. A tired, lonely man who didn't know how to apologize without opening his wallet. I can't take this, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. You can. You should. He moved closer, close enough that she could see those gold flecks in his gray eyes again. You know what your problem is? I'm sure you're going to tell me. You think accepting help makes you weak. But telling me no yesterday, standing your ground when everyone else was too scared, that wasn't weakness. That was strength. And strong people deserve support, not charity. The distinction shouldn't have mattered, but somehow it did. Support versus charity. Recognition versus pity. The difference between being seen as capable and being seen as needy. As she tried to shove the envelope back at him, their struggle sent bills flying across the parking lot. And suddenly they were both on their knees, scrambling for scattered 20s, their faces inches apart in the darkness. The richest man in Austin, Texas, was sitting in a Savannah diner at 2 a.m., watching a single mother count tips and wondering why her smile felt more valuable than his stock portfolio. Nathan told himself he'd come back to Romano's for the coffee. The coffee was terrible, but it was a reasonable lie. Better than admitting he'd been driving around Savannah for 3 hours, taking conference calls from his Tesla, just so he could watch Dana work through the restaurant's front windows like some kind of well-dressed stalker. The late shift at Romano's was different, quieter. The dinner crowd had cleared out, leaving behind a handful of insomniacs, shift workers grabbing coffee, and one tech billionaire who apparently had nowhere better to be at 2 in the morning. Dana looked tired. Not the surface tired that coffee fixes, but the bone-deep exhaustion that comes from working double shifts and single parenting and pretending everything's fine when it absolutely isn't. She moved between tables with practiced efficiency, but Nathan caught the way she paused sometimes, hand pressed her lower back, eyes closed for just a second too long. We're closing in an hour, she said when she approached his corner booth. Kitchen's already down. Just coffee's fine. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. You look like you could use a break. Dana glanced around the nearly empty restaurant, then at the coffee pot in her hands, then back at him. I'm working. I'll tip you for the conversation. Everything's transactional with you, isn't it? The observation hit harder than it should have. Nathan set down his coffee cup and really looked at her. The way her shoulders sagged when she thought no one was watching, the careful way she counted her tip money, the phone that kept buzzing in her apron pocket. Sit, he said softer this time. Please, no transaction. Just sit. Have you ever connected with someone in the most unexpected place? Or did you realize someone wasn't who you thought they were? Share below. She sat. The empty restaurant hummed around them. Ice machines cycling, coffee maker gurgling, the distant sound of someone washing dishes in the kitchen. Under the dim booth lights, with the rest of the world shut out, they felt like the only two people left in the universe. "Why are you really here?" Dana asked. Nathan considered lying. Considered giving her some smooth answer about enjoying the atmosphere or liking the late-night crowd. Instead, he told her the truth. "I don't sleep much. Haven't in years. Usually I work through the night, emails, calls, planning the next acquisition. But lately," he trailed off, not sure how to explain the restlessness that had been eating at him since their first encounter. Lately I've been thinking about dignity. About what it looks like when someone refuses to be treated like they don't matter." Dana's phone buzzed again. She ignored it. "Is that what you think you were doing? Treating me like I didn't matter?" "I think I was treating everyone like they didn't matter, including myself." The honesty surprised them both. Nathan Riker didn't do vulnerable. He did decisive, confident, occasionally explosive. But sitting across from Dana in that worn vinyl booth, he felt like he was showing her parts of himself that hadn't seen daylight in decades. "Tell me about your son," he said suddenly. Dana's entire demeanor shifted, walls coming down, face softening. "Marcus. He's 8. Smart as hell, stubborn as his mother, and currently convinced he's going to be a video game designer when he grows up." "What kind of games?" "The kind where the heroes actually help people instead of just blowing things up." She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. "He's got this whole concept about a character who builds hospitals and schools instead of destroying enemy bases. Says there's not enough games about fixing things." Something twisted in Nathan's chest. "Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. He asks questions I don't know how to answer. Like why some people have so much money they don't know what to do with it, while other people can't afford medicine for their kids." The phone buzzed again. This time Dana glanced at it, and Nathan caught the worry that flashed across her face. "Everything okay?" "It's fine." But she was already standing up, that careful professional mask sliding back into place. "I should get back to work." When she mentioned her son needed surgery they couldn't afford, Nathan's immediate offer to help died on his lips, because the look in her eyes warned him that some problems couldn't be solved with money. 8-year-old Marcus Brooks looked the billionaire dead in the eye and asked the one question that would change everything. "Are you here to hurt my mama?" Dana had never brought a man home before. Not in the 3 years since the divorce. Not in all the months of working double shifts and scraped-together dinners and bedtime stories read by lamplight, because the overhead bulb had burned out and she couldn't afford to replace it yet. But here was Nathan Riker, standing in her living room like he'd been dropped there by alien spacecraft, looking around at her second-hand furniture and carefully patched walls like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "It's not much," Dana said, suddenly seeing her home through his eyes. The couch she'd bought at a yard sale, the coffee table Marcus had helped her paint bright blue, the stack of library books that served as her entertainment budget. "It's perfect," Nathan said, and the way he said it made her believe he meant it. That's when Marcus appeared in the hallway doorway, hair sticking up from his afternoon nap, superhero pajamas wrinkled, clutching a stuffed dinosaur that had seen better decades. He took one look at Nathan in his expensive suit and asked a question that stopped everyone cold. "Are you here to hurt my mama?" The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Nathan crouched down, so he was eye level with Marcus, his movements slow and deliberate. "No," he said simply. "I'm here because your mama is the bravest person I've ever met, and I wanted to meet the kid who taught her how to be so strong." Marcus considered this with the seriousness that only 8-year-olds can bring to life's big questions. She learned that by herself. "But I help a little." "I bet you did. What matters more? How someone treats you, or how they treat your children? Have you ever seen someone completely different through a child's eyes?" "Comment bido?" Dinner was a revelation. Not the food. Dana had thrown together spaghetti and garlic bread with the kind of efficiency that spoke to years of making something from nothing. But watching Nathan navigate her world, asking Marcus about school and video games and dinosaurs with genuine interest, not the patronizing tone most adults used with kids. "Do you know anything about coding?" Marcus asked, twirling spaghetti around his fork with questionable success. "A little," Nathan said, which was like saying the ocean was damp. What kind of games are you thinking about making? Games that help people. Like, what if instead of shooting aliens, you had to build them houses? Or instead of racing cars, you were racing to deliver medicine to sick kids? Nathan set down his fork and really looked at Marcus. This 8-year-old boy who saw the world in terms of helping instead of winning, who thought about solutions instead of problems. You know what? Nathan said, I think you're onto something. The world has plenty of games about destroying things. Not nearly enough about building them. Dana watched this conversation unfold with growing amazement. Not because Nathan was being nice to her son. Anyone could fake nice for an hour. But because he was listening to Marcus like his ideas mattered, like an 8-year-old's thoughts about making the world better were worth serious consideration. Maybe you could teach me sometime, Nathan continued. I know the business side of tech, but I think you understand something about games that I never learned. What's that? That the best games don't just entertain people. They inspire them. As Nathan helped Marcus with homework, explaining coding basics with surprising patience, Dana felt her walls crumbling until her phone buzzed with a text that made her blood freeze. We need to talk about Nathan Riker. Tonight. The text was from her ex-husband, Jake. The man who'd walked out when Marcus was 5, who showed up only when he needed something or wanted to cause trouble. And now he was asking about Nathan. Dana excused herself to the kitchen, hands shaking as she read the message again. How did Jake even know about Nathan? And why did his sudden interest feel like a threat wrapped in concern? Through the kitchen doorway, she could see Nathan and Marcus bent over homework together. Nathan's expensive suit jacket draped over her yard sale dining chair like it belonged there. For a moment, she let herself imagine what it would be like to have this. Not just the help with bills or the fancy dinners, but this. A partner who saw her son as more than just part of the package deal. But Jake's text burned in her phone like a warning. Nothing this good came without a price. And Dana had learned the hard way that when something seemed too perfect, it usually was. The warning came from her ex-husband. He's not what you think. Ask him about the Phoenix Project. But some truths are more terrifying than the lies they replace. Jake was waiting by her car when Dana's shift ended Thursday night. 3 years of blessed silence. And now he was lurking in Romano's parking lot like a bad memory that refused to stay buried. He looked exactly the same cocky smile, same leather jacket that he thought made him look mysterious instead of middle-aged. Hell, Donna. Her keys were already in her hand, positioned between her fingers the way her sister had taught her. Old habits from a marriage that had taught her to always have an exit strategy. What do you want, Jake? Can't a guy check on his ex-wife? Make sure she's not making any questionable choices. The way he said questionable made her skin crawl. Jake had always been good at making his jealousy sound like concern, his control sound like protection. My choices aren't your business anymore. They're when they affect my son. Your son? Dana's voice went dangerously quiet. The son you see every other weekend when you're not too busy? The son whose surgery you can't help pay for because you're between jobs again. Jake held up his hands like he was surrendering, but his smile never wavered. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to warn you about your new boyfriend. Nathan isn't. Nathan Riker. Tech millionaire. Real charmer, I hear. But did he tell you about Phoenix? The name hit Dana like cold water. Phoenix. Nathan had mentioned it once in passing, some business deal from his past that hadn't worked out. But the way Jake said it, with that predator's grin, made it sound like something darker. When someone warns you about the person you're falling for, do you listen? Have you ever had to choose between your head and your heart? Tell me below. I don't know what game you're playing. No game. Just facts. Jake pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then showed her the screen. A news article from 2 years ago. Phoenix development project leaves families homeless. Dana's hands went numb as she read the headline. The article talked about a low-income housing development that had been torn down for luxury condos. Families displaced, promises broken, lives destroyed. And there, quoted in the article as the lead investor, was Nathan Riker. 43 families, Dana, thrown out on the street so rich people could have better views of the river. And your knight, in shining armor? He was the one holding the eviction notices. The parking lot seemed to tilt around her. All those late-night conversations, all that talk about dignity and respect. And Nathan had never mentioned destroying people's homes for profit. Why are you telling me this? Because Marcus deserves better than a stepfather who throws families into the street. Because you deserve to know who you're really dealing with. Jake reached out like he was going to touch her arm, and Dana stepped back so fast she hit her car door. Stay away from us, Jake. Whatever this is, whatever you're really after, the answer is no. I'm trying to protect you. You lost the right to protect me when you walked out. Don't pretend you care now just because someone else might. She got in her car and drove home with shaking hands, Jake's words echoing in her head. Phoenix Development. 43 families. Nathan had money because he destroyed other people's homes, other people's lives. But that didn't match the man who'd spent an hour helping Marcus with homework. The man who'd looked at her second-hand furniture like it was treasure. The man who'd given her money and asked for nothing in return. Unless that's exactly what he wanted her to think. When she got home, Marcus was already asleep, his homework spread across the kitchen table exactly where Nathan had left it. Perfect handwriting explaining coding concepts in 8-year-old language. Patient corrections in red pen. Star stickers on the problems Marcus had gotten right. Dana stared at that homework until her eyes burned. Either Nathan Riker was the most manipulative man she'd ever met, or Jake was lying for reasons she didn't understand yet. Her phone buzzed. Text from Nathan. Had a great time tonight. Marcus is an amazing kid. You should be proud. As they broke apart, breathless and wanting, Nathan's phone lit up with a call from his lawyer. The Phoenix project was being investigated, and Dana's name was somehow connected to the case. She learned the truth about Phoenix the way most people discover fire, by getting burned. Dana didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, diving down internet rabbit holes that got darker with every click. Phoenix Development wasn't just one article, it was dozens. A pattern of Nathan's business deals that looked successful on paper but left real people broken in their wake. The Riverside Apartments had housed 43 families. Single mothers, elderly couples, young families just starting out. All paying below-market rent for apartments that weren't fancy but were home. Until Nathan's company decided the land was worth more empty than occupied. The photos made her sick. Families loading possessions into pickup trucks. Kids holding stuffed animals, looking confused about why they had to leave the only home they'd ever known. Elderly men and women sitting on curbs next to their entire lives packed into garbage bags. And there was Nathan, quoted in the business section like he was discussing the weather. Sometimes progress requires difficult decisions. We're confident this development will benefit the entire community. The entire community. Everyone except the 43 families who'd been living there. Dana found more articles, more deals, more people displaced so Nathan could build something shinier, more profitable. A pattern that painted a picture of a man who saw human beings as obstacles to profit margins. Her phone rang at 6 a.m. Nathan's name on the screen. Good morning, beautiful. I was thinking we could grab breakfast before. We need to talk. Something in her voice must have warned him because his tone shifted immediately. What's wrong? Phoenix Development. Silence. Long enough that Dana wondered if the call had dropped. Where are you? Nathan's voice was careful now, controlled. Home. I'm coming over. Can you separate who someone was from who they're becoming? Should past mistakes define someone forever? Share your thoughts. He arrived 20 minutes later, still in yesterday's clothes like he hadn't been home. His hair was messy, his expensive shirt wrinkled, and for the first time since she'd known him, Nathan Riker looked small. Dana had the articles printed out and spread across her kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Nathan took one look and sank into the same chair where he'd helped Marcus with homework 12 hours earlier. You want to explain this to me? Dana's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. It's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you made millions of dollars throwing families out of their homes. Nathan ran both hands through his hair, then looked up at her with something that might have been shame. It's exactly what it looks like. And it's the worst thing I've ever done. The honesty caught her off guard. She'd expected denials, excuses, corporate doublespeak about market forces and economic development. Not this raw admission of guilt. Those families, are living in better housing now because I spent 2 years fixing what I broke. Nathan's voice was quiet but firm. Every single family. I tracked down all 43 households and made sure they had decent places to live. Paid moving costs, security deposits, first year's rent. It cost me more than I made on the Phoenix deal, and it was worth every penny. Dana stared at him. You never mentioned that in any of the articles. Because I didn't do it for good publicity. I did it because I couldn't sleep knowing I destroyed people's homes for profit. Because the man who signed those eviction notices was someone I didn't want to be anymore. She wanted to believe him. God help her. She wanted to believe that the man who'd been so gentle with her son was telling the truth. But trust, once broken, doesn't heal easy. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was a coward. Because I was afraid you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me right now. The pain in his voice was real. But so was the pain in those newspaper photos of families losing their homes. Those people trusted their landlord to treat them fairly. I trusted you to be honest with me. How is that different? Nathan stood up slowly, like his bones hurt. It's not different. You're right to be angry. You're right not to trust me. I just hoped. I hoped maybe who I'm trying to become mattered more than who I used to be. As she demanded he leave, the Yelp notification chimed on her phone. Someone had posted a review that would destroy everything she'd worked for, using details only Nathan could have known. The review went viral in 6 hours. Waitress extorts wealthy customers. By hour 7, Dana Brooks was suspended, and by hour 8, she realized she'd been played by a master. Dana's phone started buzzing at 5:47 a.m. First her manager, Tony, then her co-worker Jessica, then numbers she didn't recognize, reporters asking if she had any comment on the allegations. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, and opened Yelp with hands that already knew what they were going to find. Romano's Restaurant. 1-star user. Truth Teller 47. Avoid this place. Waitress runs extortion scam. Be warned about the waitress Dana. She targets wealthy customers and creates drama to squeeze them for money. Watch her deliberately mess up a customer's order multiple times, then play victim when he complained. Next thing you know, she's getting envelopes full of cash in the parking lot. Management does nothing. This place is running a con game. Posted photos, security footage showing Dana and Nathan by her car. Her accepting an envelope. The restaurant's exterior. Update did some digging. This waitress is a single mom desperate for money. She's done this before. Stay away. Dana's blood turned to ice. The photos were real, grainy security footage from the parking lot's camera, showing her and Nathan by her car 3 nights ago. The envelope clearly visible. Their body language looking intimate, conspiratorial. But the story was poison. Every detail twisted just enough to make her look guilty without being completely false. She had taken money from Nathan. She had been in the parking lot with him. To anyone reading this review, it would look exactly like what it claimed to be. Her phone rang. Tony, her manager. Dana, I need you to come in. Now. Tony, that review is completely. Just come in. We need to talk. Have you ever been publicly humiliated for something you didn't do? How did you handle being wrongly accused? Comment with your story. Romano's felt different when she walked through the front door. The same tables, same decorations, same smell of coffee and bacon that had been home for 3 years. But now the staff looked at her sideways, whispered conversations stopping when she passed. Tony's office was cramped and cluttered, takeout containers stacked on filing cabinets and invoices scattered across every surface. He looked like he hadn't slept, which made 2 of them. Sit down, Dana. That review is a lie, Tony. Every word of it. I know. Tony rubbed his face with both hands. But it doesn't matter what I know. It matters what our customers think. And right now, they think we're running some kind of scam. Dana's phone kept buzzing with notifications. The review had been shared on Facebook, Twitter, local community groups. People she'd never met were calling her a con artist, a gold digger, worse. Who would do this? Who even knew about? She stopped. Because she knew exactly who would do this. Who had warned her about Nathan just hours before this review appeared. Jake, I have to suspend you, Dana. Just until this blows over. Suspend me? Tony, I've worked here for 3 years. You know me. You know I would never. I know. But the review mentioned other incidents, other customers. People are asking questions. Corporate is asking questions. My hands are tied. The worst part wasn't losing her job. The worst part was the doubt she saw in Tony's eyes. Doubt about whether he really knew her at all. Dana drove home in a daze, her phone still buzzing with notifications she couldn't bear to read. The security footage didn't lie. She had taken money from Nathan. But the story around that footage was pure fiction, designed to destroy her reputation and her livelihood. When she got home, Marcus was eating cereal and watching cartoons, blissfully unaware that his mother's world was falling apart. "Why are you home, Mama? Don't you have to work?" "Not today, baby. I get to spend the day with you." She tried to keep her voice normal, but 8-year-olds are lie detectors. Marcus turned off the TV and looked at her with those serious eyes that saw too much. "Are you sad?" Dana sat down next to him on the couch, pulled him close, and tried not to cry. "A little bit, but it's going to be okay." "Is it because of Nathan? Did he hurt you?" The question broke her heart, because she honestly didn't know the answer. Had Nathan hurt her? Or had someone else used Nathan to hurt her? The envelope, the timing, Jake's sudden interest. It all felt connected, but she couldn't see the pattern yet. Her phone rang. Nathan's name on the screen. She let go to voicemail. As Dana drove away, refusing to hear his explanations, Nathan pulled out his phone with shaking hands, because he knew exactly who had posted that review and why they wanted to destroy the first good thing in his life. Nathan's business partner smiled as he watched the news coverage, but his expression held no warmth. Only the satisfaction of a man who'd just removed an inconvenient obstacle to a billion-dollar deal. Marcus Webb had been Nathan's business partner for 8 years. They'd built their tech empire together, survived market crashes and hostile takeovers and congressional hearings about monopolistic practices. Nathan trusted Marcus with his company, his reputation, his future. He should have paid more attention to the jealousy. Marcus watched the local news coverage from his corner office in Austin, sipping his morning coffee like he was watching the weather report instead of the systematic destruction of an innocent woman's life. The reporter was interviewing concerned customers about the alleged extortion scheme at Romano's restaurant. Perfect strangers who'd never eaten there, talking about Dana like she was a known criminal. "Brilliant work," Marcus said to the empty office. "Absolutely brilliant." He'd been watching Nathan's behavior for weeks. The mysterious trips to Savannah, the distracted phone calls, the way Nathan's legendary temper had mellowed into something dangerously close to contentment. Marcus had built his fortune reading people, and Nathan Riker in love was a man about to make stupid decisions. Like walking away from the Henderson acquisition. $5 billion in government contracts, enough to make them both richer than God, and Nathan was getting cold feet because of ethical concerns. Ethical concerns from a man who'd built his empire buying and dismantling companies like they were toys. But Marcus had done his research on Dana Brooks. Single mother, desperate for money, working multiple jobs to survive. The perfect pressure point. All it took was one carefully crafted story to make Nathan doubt everything he thought he knew about her. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. No lies technically. Dana had taken money from Nathan. They had met in private. The security footage was real. Marcus had just provided context, helped people understand what they were really seeing. Have you ever discovered that someone close to you was sabotaging your happiness? What did you do when you found out who your real enemy was? Share below. Nathan's call came exactly when Marcus expected it. "We need to talk." "Good morning to you too, partner." "Rough night." "Cut the shit, Marcus. I know you posted that review. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" Silence on Nathan's end. Because of course he didn't have proof. Marcus was too smart for proof. He'd used an untraceable account, covered his digital tracks, made sure nothing could be traced back to him. "What?" Nathan's voice was raw, exhausted. "Why would you destroy an innocent woman's life?" "Because you were about to destroy our company for a piece of ass." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus had crossed the line, and they both knew it. But sometimes lines needed to be crossed to save people from their own stupidity. Henderson Aerospace, Nathan, $5 billion in contracts. Enough money to buy entire countries. And you want to walk away because of some moral awakening brought on by a waitress who's probably playing you anyway. She's not playing me. Really? Desperate single mother just happens to catch the eye of a billionaire? Takes his money without question? Doesn't that seem a little convenient to you? Marcus could hear Nathan's breathing through the phone, short and sharp like he was fighting not to explode. Good. Anger made people sloppy, and Nathan needed to be sloppy right now. You don't know her. I know her type. I know what desperation looks like. And I know you well enough to know that guilt makes you stupid. You gave her money because you felt bad about some old business deal, and she saw an opportunity. That's not what happened. Isn't it? Then why won't she talk to you? Why isn't she fighting the allegations? Innocent people fight back, Nathan. Guilty people disappear. The silence stretched between them until Marcus wondered if Nathan had hung up. Finally, if you ever come near her or her son again, I'll destroy you. With what? The evidence you don't have? The company you're about to lose because you can't think with anything but your dick. Nathan hung up. Marcus set down his phone and pulled up the Henderson Aerospace contracts on his computer. $5 billion. The deal of a lifetime. And all it had cost was one waitress's reputation and Nathan's misguided faith in human nature. By the time Nathan figured out how to prove Marcus's involvement, the Henderson deal would be signed and sealed. Dana Brooks would be a distant memory, and Nathan would thank him for saving them both from a costly mistake. As Nathan gathered evidence of Marcus's manipulation, his phone buzzed with a text from Dana's lawyer. Custody hearing moved to tomorrow. They're using the restaurant incident against her. The stakes had just become life and death. She sat in that courthouse with nothing but her dignity and a prayer, while across town, a billionaire was about to burn his entire empire to save her son from being taken away. The custody hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday that felt like the end of the world. Dana sat in the courthouse hallway wearing her only professional dress, the one she'd bought for job interviews 3 years ago, trying not to throw up from sheer terror. Jake's lawyer was expensive, the kind of expensive that came with perfect hair and a briefcase that cost more than Dana's monthly rent. Jake himself looked respectable in a way that made her skin crawl. New suit, fresh haircut, playing the role of concerned father. Dana's lawyer was court-appointed and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He'd spent 15 minutes reviewing her case before the hearing, asking questions that made it clear he thought she was probably guilty of something. Mrs. Brooks, the allegations about your conduct at Romano's restaurant are concerning, Judge Martinez said, flipping through the file like it contained evidence of war crimes. Extortion, manipulation of wealthy customers, creating public disturbances. Your Honor, those allegations are completely false. Dana's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. I never extorted anyone. The review that started this was posted by someone trying to hurt me. Can you prove that? Dana's lawyer shuffled through his papers uselessly. We're still investigating the source of the review, Your Honor. Jake's lawyer stood up, sharp, smooth, and confident. Your Honor, regardless of whether the specific allegations are true, they demonstrate a pattern of poor judgment. My client is concerned about exposing his son to potential criminal activity and public scandal. What would you risk to protect someone you love? Have you ever had someone fight for you when you couldn't fight for yourself? Tell me in the comments. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, Mrs. Brooks has been suspended from her job and may face criminal charges. She's clearly unable to provide stable housing or consistent income. Mr. Brooks is prepared to offer his son a stable, scandal-free home environment. Dana felt the walls closing in. Everything Jake's lawyer said was technically true, even though the truth behind it was twisted beyond recognition. She had been suspended. There might be criminal charges. Her income was gone, her reputation destroyed. Mrs. Brooks, Judge Martinez said, what do you have to say about your current employment situation? I'm temporarily suspended pending an investigation, Your Honor. But I'm confident my name will be cleared. Temporarily suspended from a job that pays minimum wage, Jake's lawyer interjected. While Mr. Brooks has a stable career in construction management and can provide health insurance, educational opportunities, I can provide love, Dana said suddenly, her voice cutting through the lawyer's prepared speech. I can provide the kind of home where a child feels safe and valued and heard, where his ideas about making the world better aren't dismissed as childish fantasies. Judge Martinez looked up from the file. Mrs. Brooks, love doesn't pay for food or medical care. No, Your Honor, but it builds the kind of person who understands that some things matter more than money. The courthouse doors opened with a bang that echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Every head turned to see Nathan Riker striding toward the courtroom, flanked by two lawyers who looked like they could buy and sell the building without blinking. Dana's heart stopped. What was he doing here? How did he even know about the hearing? Nathan's lead lawyer, a woman with silver hair and predator's eyes, approached the bench. Your Honor, I'm Catherine Morrison representing Mr. Nathan Riker. We have evidence relevant to this custody case that we'd like to present. Jake's lawyer was on his feet immediately. Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Riker isn't a party to this case. Mr. Riker has information about the false allegations that form the basis of Mr. Brooks's custody petition. Morrison replied smoothly. Information that directly contradicts the claims made against Mrs. Brooks. Judge Martinez looked annoyed at having his routine hearing complicated by expensive lawyers and billionaire witnesses. This is highly irregular. Yes, Your Honor, but justice often requires irregular measures. Nathan took the witness stand like he was testifying before Congress instead of family court judge. His voice was calm, authoritative, the voice of a man who'd built an empire from nothing and wasn't about to let it crumble now. Your Honor, I gave Mrs. Brooks money not because she extorted or manipulated me, but because she taught me something about dignity that I'd forgotten. The review that destroyed her reputation was posted by my business partner as retaliation for my refusal to participate in an unethical business deal. Can you prove this, Mr. Riker? Nathan's lawyer handed a tablet to the judge. Digital forensics traced the review to an IP address registered to Marcus Webb, Mr. Riker's business partner. We also have email communications showing Mr. Webb's intent to neutralize the Dana Brooks problem to ensure Mr. Riker's participation in the Henderson Aerospace acquisition. As the judge called for recess, Nathan's lawyer whispered the words that changed everything. We found the smoking gun. Marcus Webb has been embezzling for 2 years, and Dana's review was just the beginning of covering his tracks. The Tyrant's Awakening, final chapters. The embezzlement records painted a picture that made Nathan's stomach turn. His trusted partner had been stealing for 2 years, and destroying Dana was just another line item in covering his tracks. Catherine Morrison spread the financial documents across the conference table like a dealer laying out cards. Bank statements, wire transfers, shell company registrations. Enough evidence to send Marcus Webb to prison for the next decade. Nathan stared at the papers, watching 8 years of partnership dissolve into betrayal and greed. He's been moving money through fake consulting contracts, Morrison explained, her finger tracing the paper trail. Webb Industries, Strategic Solutions LLC, Phoenix Consulting, all registered to addresses that don't exist, all funneling money from your joint accounts into his personal holdings. $2.7 million, Nathan said quietly. Over 2 years. The Dana Brooks situation was just him cleaning up loose ends. You were asking questions about company finances, threatening to audit the Phoenix project, getting too close to the truth. He needed you distracted, discredited, or both. Nathan's phone had been buzzing nonstop since they'd left the courthouse. Reporters, business associates, board members who'd seen the news coverage and wanted explanations. His reputation was being shredded in real time, and Marcus was probably sitting in his office right now, playing the role of concerned business partner. We need to move fast, Morrison continued. Webb knows the custody hearing didn't go his way. He'll try to disappear the evidence. Maybe disappear himself. We file criminal charges today, freeze all accounts, and pray we can recover some of what he stole. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted completely was betraying you? How did you handle learning that years of friendship were built on lies? Share your story below. Nathan thought about all the late nights he'd spent building their company while Marcus handled the boring financial details. All the times Marcus had volunteered to deal with investors, handle contracts, manage the money so Nathan could focus on the big picture. It had seemed like the perfect partnership. Nathan's vision, Marcus's execution. Except Marcus had been executing his own plan the entire time. "There's something else," Morrison said, sliding another document across the table. The timing of the restaurant review, the custody hearing, even Jake Brooks suddenly having money for an expensive lawyer. It's all connected. Webb paid for everything. Nathan's blood went cold. He paid Jake $50,000 to file for custody, another $20,000 for the lawyer. Webb needed Dana discredited and distracted. A custody battle accomplishes both. The scope of the betrayal was breathtaking. Marcus hadn't just stolen money. He'd weaponized a desperate father's love for his son, turned it into another tool for covering his crimes. Used an 8-year-old boy as collateral damage in a financial scheme. "Son of a bitch," Nathan whispered. "Indeed. But we have him dead to rights now. The question is what you want to do about your company." Nathan looked out the conference room window at downtown Austin. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably celebrating what he thought was a successful manipulation. Dana was probably home with Marcus, trying to explain why strangers on the internet were calling her a criminal. And Jake was probably planning how to spend his blood money. "I want him destroyed," Nathan said simply. "Not just prosecuted. Destroyed. I want him to lose everything he stole and everything he thought he earned legitimately. I want him to understand what it feels like to have your life torn apart by someone you trusted." Morrison smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "That could be arranged." Nathan's phone rang. Dana's name on the screen. The first time she called him since the restaurant review went viral. "Nathan." Her voice was shaky, exhausted. "I need help." Jake took Marcus. The words hit him like a physical blow. "What do you mean he took Marcus?" "The judge awarded Jake temporary custody, pending investigation of the fraud charges. He picked Marcus up from school an hour ago. My son doesn't even know what's happening." Nathan was already standing, already moving toward the door. "Where are they?" "I don't know." Jake won't answer his phone. His lawyer says they're establishing a stable environment before allowing visitation. "We'll find them," Nathan promised. "We'll get Marcus back." "Not done. I'm sorry. About not believing you, about pushing you away. I was scared and—" "Don't apologize. You were protecting your son. That's what good mothers do." As Nathan rushed toward his car, Morrison called after him. "The fraud charges will be dropped by tomorrow. But Webb's going to run once he realizes we're onto him. Then we better catch him first." Nathan drove toward Savannah with his foot on the gas and murder in his heart. Marcus Webb had made this personal the moment he involved an innocent child. And Nathan Riker had built his empire by crushing people who made things personal. The call came as Nathan reached the Georgia state line. Marcus Webb's private jet had filed a flight plan to the Cayman Islands, and Jake Brooks was nowhere to be found. They found Jake's truck abandoned at a boat launch with Marcus's backpack still inside, and suddenly a custody dispute became a kidnapping that crossed international waters. The Savannah Police Department treated Nathan like he was reporting a lost wallet instead of a missing 8-year-old. Detective Sarah Chun listened to his explanation with the kind of polite disinterest reserved for rich people with complicated problems. "So let me understand this," Chun said, leaning back in her desk chair. "Your business partner embezzled money, paid the child's biological father to file for custody, and now you think they've kidnapped the boy too? What? Escaped to the Cayman Islands? That's exactly what I think. And you have proof of this conspiracy?" Nathan handed her the financial documents Morrison's team had compiled. Bank transfers, flight records, cell phone pings that tracked Jake's movements from the courthouse to the marina. Everything except Marcus's current location. "This is a civil custody matter that got out of hand," Chun said after scanning the papers. "Not a kidnapping. The father took the child outside his court-approved jurisdiction without notification. That's kidnapping in any state, unless he had reason to believe the child was in danger." Nathan wanted to grab Detective Chun by the shoulders and shake some sense into her. Every minute they spent talking was another minute Marcus was getting farther from home, from his mother, from safety. The child isn't in danger from his mother. He's in danger from Marcus Webb, who's trying to cover up 2 years of embezzlement by making witnesses disappear. When someone you love goes missing, how long is too long to wait for help? Have you ever had to take matters into your own hands when the system failed you? Comment below. Dana burst through the police station doors like she was fleeing a fire. Her hair was a mess, her hands shaking, her eyes red from crying. She looked around the busy station until she spotted Nathan, then practically ran to where he was sitting. Any news? They found Jake's truck at Wilmington Marina, empty except for Marcus's school backpack. Dana's knees gave out. Nathan caught her before she hit the floor, helped her into the chair next to his. She felt fragile in his arms, like she might shatter if he let go. He took my baby on a boat. Marcus can't swim, Nathan. He's terrified of deep water. We're going to find him. How? If they're on a boat, they could be anywhere. Cuba, Mexico, some private island where no one will ever find them. Detective Chun cleared her throat. Mrs. Brooks, I know this is difficult, but we need to consider that your ex-husband might genuinely believe he's protecting your son. The allegations about your conduct are lies, Dana said fiercely. Complete lies designed to destroy my family. And while you're sitting here questioning my character, my 8-year-old son is on a boat with a man he barely knows, probably scared out of his mind. Nathan's phone buzzed. Morrison calling with an update. We tracked Webb's jet to Nassau, Morrison said without preamble. Landed 2 hours ago. But here's the interesting part. Jake Brooks used a credit card at a gas station in Fernandina Beach 40 minutes ago. They're not together. Nathan felt a spark of hope. If Jake and Marcus were still on the mainland, still within reach of U.S. law enforcement, they had a chance. Send me the location. Nathan, don't do anything stupid. Let the police handle this. The police think this is a custody dispute. By the time they figure out it's a kidnapping, Marcus could be in international waters. He ended the call and turned to Dana. Jake's still in Florida. Fernandina Beach, about 2 hours south. We can be there by midnight. I'm coming with you. Dana, he's my son. I'm coming with you. Detective Chun stood up, finally showing some urgency. Mr. Riker, if you have actionable intelligence about the child's location, you need to share it with law enforcement. Taking matters into your own hands could make things worse. Things are already worse. An 8-year-old boy has been kidnapped by a man paid to commit fraud. How exactly does law enforcement plan to make that better? Nathan helped Dana to her feet. She was steadier now, powered by maternal fury instead of grief. He recognized the transformation because he'd felt it himself. The moment when fear turns into determination, when you stop being a victim and start being dangerous. We're going to find Marcus, he told Detective Chun. With or without your help. They walked out of the police station together, leaving behind the proper channels and official procedures. Sometimes justice required breaking a few rules. And Nathan Riker had built his fortune by understanding that sometimes the right thing to do wasn't the legal thing to do. Dana's phone rang as they reached Nathan's car. Unknown number. Hello. Mama. Marcus's voice, small and scared. Baby, are you okay? Where are you? I'm on a boat. It's really big and it smells funny. Jake says we're going on an adventure, but I want to come home. I want to come home now. The line went dead. Marcus's call came from a maritime satellite that pinged off 3 cell towers, triangulating to a position that made Dana's blood freeze, Blackbeard's Island, where tourists never went and Coast Guard patrols were few. Captain Rodriguez had been running fishing charters out of Fernandina Beach for 20 years. He'd seen every kind of customer, drunk college kids, wealthy executives playing weekend warrior, desperate people who needed to get somewhere fast and didn't want to answer questions. Nathan and Dana fell into that last category. Blackbeard's Island, Rodriguez repeated, studying the nautical charts spread across his boat's tiny table. You sure about that location? The satellite ping was definitive, Nathan said. Can you get us there? I can get you there. Question is whether you want to go. That island's got a reputation. Dana was pacing the narrow cabin like a caged animal. Every minute they spent talking was another minute Marcus was alone with Jake on some godforsaken piece of land that sounded like a pirate movie set. What kind of reputation? Rodriguez pointed to a small speck on the chart, barely visible among the maze of barrier islands off the Georgia coast. Drug runners used it in the 80s. Smugglers before that. Coast Guard doesn't patrol it regular because there's nothing there except ruins and snakes. Perfect place to hide if you don't want to be found. How long to get there? 3 hours in good weather. But there's a storm system moving in from the south. Seas are going to get rough after midnight. Nathan looked at Dana. Her face was pale but determined, the expression of a mother who would walk through hell to get her child back. "We go now," she said, "before the storm hits." "Ma'am, with respect, this isn't a pleasure cruise. If your boy's really on that island, there's probably a reason someone picked it. Could be dangerous. Have you ever had to choose between safety and saving someone you love? When the authorities can't help, how far would you go to protect your family? Tell me in the comments." "My son is 8 years old and afraid of deep water," Dana said quietly. "He's probably terrified right now, wondering why his mother isn't coming to get him. Dangerous doesn't matter. Getting him home matters." Rodriguez studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but we do this smart. I've got flares, life jackets, marine radio. We spot any trouble, we call the Coast Guard and get out of there." Nathan handed him $5,000 in cash. "There's another 5 when we get back safely." With the boy. "Mister, I do this for free after hearing that kid's voice on the phone. But I'll take your money anyway. Boat fuel ain't cheap." The trip out was rough from the start. The Atlantic was angry, waves crashing over the bow as Rodriguez's 30-foot charter boat fought through swells that seemed determined to send them back to shore. Dana spent the first hour throwing up over the side, but she never once suggested turning back. "There," Rodriguez called over the engine noise, pointing toward a dark mass rising from the water. "Blackbeard's Island. And that's a boat anchored on the north side." Nathan used Rodriguez's binoculars to scan the shoreline. The island was maybe 2 miles long, covered in scrub brush and twisted trees that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. A single structure was visible through the vegetation, concrete walls that might have been a bunker or storage facility. And tied to a makeshift dock, a 40-foot fishing boat that looked expensive enough to belong to someone with serious money. "That's not Jake's boat," Dana said, studying the vessel through the binoculars. "Jake couldn't afford something like that." "No," Nathan agreed, "but Marcus Webb could." The realization hit them both at the same time. This wasn't just a desperate father fleeing with his son. This was a planned rendezvous. Webb had arranged the whole thing: the custody battle, the kidnapping, the escape route. Jake was just another hired gun, paid to deliver Marcus to whatever Webb had planned. "Why would he want Marcus?" Dana asked. "What good does kidnapping an 8-year-old do?" Nathan's blood went cold as he understood. "Leverage. He knows I'll do anything to get Marcus back safely, including keeping quiet about the embezzlement, dropping the criminal charges, maybe even giving him a head start before anyone comes looking." Rodriguez cut the engine as they approached the island's southern shore. "We go in quiet from here. Beach the boat, walk up through the trees. But I'm telling you both, if this goes sideways, we run. I'm not dying on this godforsaken rock for anyone." Dana was already over the side, splashing through knee-deep water toward the beach. "I'm not leaving without my son." Nathan followed her into the surf, feeling the Atlantic trying to drag him back toward deeper water. Behind them, Rodriguez secured his boat and grabbed the flare gun. "Stay low, stay quiet," he whispered, "and pray that storm holds off long enough for us to get out of here alive." As they crept through the island's twisted vegetation toward the concrete structure, Marcus's voice carried on the wind. Not scared anymore, but angry. "I want to go home now." Marcus Webb stood in that ruined bunker like a king in his castle. But when he saw Nathan emerge from the shadows, his face went white as old bone. The concrete building had been some kind of military installation decades ago. Thick walls, narrow windows, the kind of place designed to withstand bombardment. Now it was falling apart, walls cracked and stained with rust, but it still provided shelter from the wind and waves. And inside, Marcus Webb was discovering that 8-year-old boys don't make cooperative hostages. "I said I want to go home." Marcus Brooks's voice echoed off the concrete walls like a battle cry. "You're not my dad, and you're not the boss of me." Through the broken window, Nathan could see Webb pacing like a caged animal. The man who'd stolen millions with surgical precision was being undone by one furious child who refused to cooperate with his kidnapping. Kid, just sit down and be quiet for 5 minutes. No, I want my mama, and I want to go home, and I want you to leave me alone. Jake sat in the corner, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past day. His expensive clothes were wrinkled and salt-stained, his face pale with the realization that he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. "This wasn't the plan, Marcus," Jake said quietly. "You said temporary custody, maybe a week or two until things settle down. You didn't say anything about bringing him to some deserted island." "Plans change," Webb snapped. "Riker's got forensic accountants crawling all over the company books. I need more time to clean up the evidence. By kidnapping my son, by giving myself leverage. Nathan Riker's got a weakness now. He cares about people. Makes him predictable." Nathan signaled Dana and Rodriguez to stay hidden while he moved closer to the building's entrance. Through the doorway, he could see Marcus sitting defiantly on the concrete floor, arms crossed, glaring at his captors like they were insects he'd found in his lunch. What would you do if someone used a child as a bargaining chip? How far is too far when protecting someone innocent? Share your thoughts below. "Uncle Nathan's going to come get me," Marcus announced with the absolute certainty that only 8-year-olds possess. "And when he does, you're going to be in big trouble. Uncle Nathan doesn't even know where you are, kid." "Yes, he does. He's really smart, and he has lots of money, and he's probably already called the police and the FBI and maybe even the army." Webb laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Money doesn't solve everything, kid. Sometimes it just makes new problems." Nathan stepped into the doorway, his voice cutting through the conversation like a blade. "You're right about that, Marcus. Money definitely made problems for you." Webb spun around so fast he nearly fell over. His face went through several expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, resignation, before settling on desperate defiance. "Nathan, I was wondering when you'd show up. Let the boy go. This is between us. Everything's between us now. You made it personal when you started asking questions about Phoenix." Marcus looked up at Nathan with pure relief. "I told you he'd come. I told you Uncle Nathan would find me." "Hey there, buddy," Nathan said, his voice gentle despite the fury burning in his chest. "You okay? I'm hungry and I want to go home, and these guys smell funny. We'll fix all of that. I promise." Webb pulled out a gun, small, chrome, the kind of weapon that looked more like jewelry than a tool for killing. His hands were shaking as he pointed it in Nathan's general direction. "Nobody's going anywhere until I get what I came for." "Which is what exactly? More time to steal money? A head start before the FBI catches up with you? What's your endgame here, Marcus?" "My endgame is survival. You think I can just walk away from $2.5 million in embezzlement charges? They'll put me in prison for 20 years. They'll put you in prison for life if you hurt that child." Jake stood up slowly, hands visible, voice careful. "Marcus, this has gone far enough. Let me take my son home. You can disappear, start over somewhere else. But leave the kid out of it. Your son." Webb's laugh was getting higher, more unhinged. "You sold your son for $50,000, Jake. Don't pretend you care about him now." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Marcus looked between the two men, confusion replacing defiance as he began to understand that something was very wrong. "What does he mean, Jake?" Marcus asked quietly. "Why did he give you money?" Nathan saw the moment Jake's world collapsed. Saw the exact second when a desperate father realized he destroyed his relationship with his son for money that wasn't even his to keep. Marcus, I thought. I was trying to protect you. By selling him?" Webb's voice was getting louder, more unstable. "By taking money to file false custody claims? You're a real piece of work, Jake." The gun wavered between Nathan and Jake, Webb's attention divided, his plan falling apart around him. Outside, thunder rumbled as the storm Rodriguez had warned about finally reached the island. And in that moment of distraction, as Webb turned to sneer at Jake, Nathan lunged forward. Not toward the gun, but toward the boy. The gunshot echoed off the concrete walls like the world ending, and Dana's scream carried on the storm wind like a prayer to gods who'd stopped listening. The bullet shattered concrete instead of bone, but the sound of Marcus crying "Mama" as Dana burst through the doorway was worth more than every dollar Nathan had ever earned. The gun skittered across the concrete floor as Nathan and Webb crashed into the far wall. 8 years of partnership dissolved into pure violence as they fought over the weapon, Webb clawing at Nathan's face while Nathan tried to pin his arms. Dana didn't hesitate. She ran straight to Marcus, scooped him up like he weighed nothing, and held him against her chest while he sobbed into her shoulder. "I knew you'd come," Marcus whispered. "I knew you'd find me. Always, baby. Always." Jake stood frozen in the corner, watching his son cling to his mother and understanding that he'd lost them both forever. The money Webb had paid him was still in his wallet, blood money that had cost him everything that mattered. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway with the flare gun raised. "Coast Guard's 20 minutes out. We need to secure that weapon before." The second gunshot came from outside. Then shouts, running footsteps, the sound of a boat engine roaring to life. "Webb!" Nathan rolled away from the wall, blood streaming from scratches on his face. But Marcus Webb was gone, disappeared through one of the bunker's rear windows. "Let him go," Dana said firmly. "Let him run. We have what matters." Nathan looked at her, holding Marcus, both of them safe and together, and realized she was right. Webb could flee to the Cayman Islands, or Tahiti, or Mars for all Nathan cared. The important thing was that a mother had her son back, and an 8-year-old boy was going home where he belonged. But Rodriguez was shaking his head. That other boat's engine just started. If he makes it to international waters. "He won't," Nathan said with certainty. "Webb's a white-collar criminal playing action hero. He's probably never driven a boat in rough seas before." The storm was hitting the island hard now, rain driving horizontally through the broken windows, waves crashing against the shore with increasing violence. Through the concrete walls, they could hear Webb's boat engine struggling against the swells. When was the last time you held someone you thought you'd lost forever? What does it feel like when justice takes care of itself? Tell me in the comments. "Coast Guard's here," Rodriguez announced, pointing toward the flashing lights cutting through the storm. "And that other boat looks like it's in trouble." They watched from the bunker's doorway as Marcus Webb's expensive fishing boat fought losing battle against the Atlantic. The storm that had made their rescue possible was now ensuring Webb wouldn't escape to enjoy his stolen fortune. "Should we try to help him?" Jake asked quietly. "He kidnapped a child," Dana replied. "He threatened to kill people. He made his choices." The Coast Guard cutter reached Webb's position just as his boat capsized. Nathan watched through Rodriguez's binoculars as uniformed officers pulled a half-drowned embezzler from the water, effectively ending his dreams of tropical exile. "Is the bad man going to jail?" Marcus asked, his voice muffled against his mother's shoulder. "Yes, baby. For a very long time." "Good. I hope they don't give him any video games." Nathan laughed despite everything. The exhaustion, the adrenaline, the cut on his face that would probably need stitches. Marcus Brooks had been kidnapped, threatened, and terrified, and his biggest concern was that his captor might enjoy recreational activities in prison. The Coast Guard evacuation was swift and professional. Medical checks, official statements, the kind of paperwork that turns a nightmare into a case file. But all Nathan really noticed was the way Marcus held on to both him and Dana during the boat ride back to shore, like he was afraid they might disappear if he let go. "Uncle Nathan." "Yeah, buddy. Are you going to keep visiting us? Even though the bad stuff is over?" Nathan looked at Dana, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Hope, maybe. Or wariness. Or something deeper that he didn't dare name yet. "If your mom says it's okay, I'd like to visit a lot." "I'd like that," Dana said quietly. "We both would." As the lights of Fernandina Beach grew brighter ahead of them, Nathan felt something shift in his chest. The tyrant who'd stormed into Romano's restaurant 6 weeks ago was gone, replaced by a man who'd learned that some things were worth more than money, worth fighting for, worth changing your entire life to protect. Marcus Webb was arrested on charges of embezzlement, kidnapping, and racketeering. Jake Brooks pleaded guilty to conspiracy and received 5 years probation in exchange for his cooperation. The custody case was dismissed with prejudice. And on a warm Tuesday morning 3 months later, Nathan Riker walked into Romano's restaurant and asked Dana Brooks a question that would change both their lives forever. But that's a story for another time. Dana looked up from polishing wine glasses with the same steady confidence that had caught his attention months ago. But now her smile held promises instead of walls. And when she said, "Your usual table, Mr. Riker," Nathan heard the words he'd been waiting his whole life to hear. "Welcome home,"